There we go. Okay. So we're going to continue with this idea of is it rewarding. The last slide, we saw that the animal will approach the experimenter's hand very quickly if they've been tickled by that hand. So this experiment was designed to see whether or not you can get the same thing if they actually have to perform a operant bar pressing task. So like we talked about with play, rats have to press a bar to get play. In this case, they're going to have to learn to press a bar in order to receive tickling. So they're trained to press a bar on an FR1 schedule. What that means, as I hopefully described to you last Tuesday, it means for every bar press, they will get a certain amount of tickling. So it's fixed ratio 1, which means every bar press results in a reward. Let's look at the results here, because this is a little confusing, but you look at it with this in mind, it makes more sense. So what they did on the first 2 test days, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the animals, every time they pressed a bar, they got a half a second worth of tickling. So they're kind of getting them to learn how to do this. So again, over here on the x-axis is the mean bar presses that they get, the rate per minute. So you see they're learning. They're acquiring the response. And then once they get up here, they say, okay, now every time you press the bar, you're going to get tickled for 2.5 seconds on one day, and then you're going to get tickled for 5 seconds for every bar press. And there's a little bit of a decrease here in the bar presses, but notice that the amount of tickle time they get is the same, and it's greater than over here. So even though it looks like it's dropping off, they're still getting the same amount of tickling. And then they increase it to 15 seconds per bar press. So every time they press the bar, then they're allowed to be tickled for 15 seconds. And you see now they really, really learn it, and they're doing very well. And when we look at total time tickled, they're getting tickled a lot. Okay. They also have an inactive bar. This is that two levers. They have 2 bars. One is active. In order to get the tickling, the reward, they have to press the active bar. If they press the inactive bar, nothing happens. So they learn this pretty quickly. And you can see down here, these little blips, these are no response with the inactive bar. And then they do an extinction phase as well, just to show that the animals do extinguish the response. In operant conditioning, this is pretty important. So what you want to know and what you want to demonstrate is that they're pressing over here to get the reward. They're pressing the lever, pressing the bar in order to be tickled. When the reward goes away, the incentive for them to press the bar should also go away. So what you should see is a relatively rapid extinction, and that's what happens over here. So during the extinction phase, they're not receiving any tickling. So they press the bar on this day, like 4 or 5 times on average. Hey, crap, what's going on here? I'm not getting tickled. The next day, they're going to press it even less until they eventually fully extinguish the response. Okay. So yes, it does appear to be rewarding. That's the second experiment. So the first one was they're going to see if the animal approaches the hand of the experimenter, which they do very quickly. Will they learn an operant response to receive tickling? Yes, they will. Will they extinguish that response when it goes away? Yes, they will. So fitting very nicely into the operant conditioning. The next thing, and this is just interesting, it's a variant of the condition place preference procedure. So what they're going to do is they're going to see again if the animal will spend more time towards an immobile hand, that is one that tickled them, or are they going to spend more time over by an anesthetized rat. So they're either going to be not tickled, that's the control group, And they're asked, the rat here is asked, do you prefer to go to the hand? The hand doesn't do anything. It's an immobile hand, which means they literally just put the hand down in this testing chamber and leave it there. Or an anesthetized rat. So they anesthetize a rat and just put him on the other side. So we have a sleeping rat, or we have an immobile hand. The control animals were not given any tickling experience, and so there's really no preference. They're as equally likely to go to the hand as they are to the anesthetized rat or anesthetized conspecific. And when they go to the hand, they don't really vocalize any more or any less than when they approach the anesthetized rat. You see a little bit of vocalizations, but not a lot. When you look at the tickle rats, these are rats that have had tickling experience. And you give them that choice. Do you go to an anesthetized rat or to the hand? They prefer to go to the hand. They spend more time next to the hand that may have tickled them, less time with the anesthetized rat, and there's no difference here. If you look at vocalizations, they also vocalize more when they are next to when they approach the immobile hand. Now remember, they're not being tickled during this test. The hand isn't moving. The hand isn't tickling them. It's just there. But they're vocalizing. They're showing these 50 kilohertz chirps when they're next to the hand. Okay? So that's just another example that is rewarding. Okay, so let's go through the conclusions of these. And first of all, rats will emit these 50 kilohertz vocalizations. And I'm going to have a few other videos for you to look at that also gets at these vocalizations a bit more. They only do this when they're manually tickled. Generally don't do it when they're lightly touched. That was the first experiment. They vocalize more when they're housed individually. You would predict that, because just as individual housing, short-term isolation increases the likelihood of play, short-term housing, isolation should also increase their sensitivity to being tickled, and that's what happens. They're more likely to vocalize. Tickling is also rewarding to them, and we went over 3 lines of evidence. 1, rats will approach the hand after being tickled. Rats will learn to perform an operant response. They'll learn to press a bar when the reward is being tickled. Psychologists got to do that. That's kind of like part of our shtick. And then finally, rats that have been tickled prefer to spend more time near a hand than near an anesthetized rat. That was the variation on the condition place preference design. Okay? All right, so that's the first part of laughing in rats. We're going to talk about one more study, and there's going to be a video associated with that I will pop in there for you. And yeah,